Hello, hello. This is Fake the Nation, where we talk about news, we talk about culture, and where we ask, are we as a society embracing tankini summer? I'm your host, Negin Farsad, and when I don't want to think about the possibility of war, I'm thinking about swimwear, or at least I'm begging my brain to think about swimwear. And apparently, tankinis are having a moment. And folks, if this is a concern to anyone, Google it, because they're not slutty, if that was an issue. I just want to allay concerns there. Today, we'll ask, is smoking cool again? And whether TikTok skincare routines are actually ruining your skin. But on the heavier front, we'll talk about the conflict between Iran and Israel and the crazy juxtaposition between the No Kings protest and the military parade this weekend. And finally, we'll ask, is happy hour a relic of the past? And oh my God, I'm so excited about today's panel. You guys. We have two first-timers on the show, but they're both like so extraordinarily well-versed in the world of talking and audio and smartness that it's not going to be an issue.
Too much hype.
No. This is what I do. This is the hype that I do. Everyone has to just deal with it. So first up, we have a wonderful comedian. He's also host of the show called The Crossword Show, which he tours around the country. And honestly, I did this show a couple weeks ago, and it was one of the most fun nights of comedy I've had in a long time. And I have many, many nights of comedy. So that's saying a lot. And it is all because of the excellence of the one and only Zach Sherwin. Hey, Zach.
Hi, Negin. Thank you so much for having me on. And I just want to say you were part of one of the best crossword shows in memory. You knocked it out of the park. And
I blush.
The crowd loved that you were like coming online with crossword puzzles for the first time before their very eyes. So it was like kind of a beautiful like birth narrative going on.
I know. And you know what? I don't even think Fake the Nation knows this, but I am not a crossword person at all. So I literally did some of my first crosswording very publicly in front of hundreds of people, which
and
was
the
both
audience, they're all crossword nerds, so they could not have been rooting harder for you to like awaken to this new world.
It's like when a baby says their first word is like exactly the experience that we were all having with me. I was the baby. All right, we are also joined, the second panelist. Oh my God, this I immediately subscribed to her podcast when it came out. It's called The Conversation. She's also the political White House bureau chief. But just about this conversation podcast, it's like so riveting because she has these like deep dive conversations with people, and you just don't expect them to talk in this way. It's just remarkable, and it is the wonderful.
We get some wild stuff out of people when you
I know when you give
form,
them
yeah.
Right, when you give them the time, they will actually say things, and it is the one and only Dasha Burns. Hi, Dasha.
Again, I'm learning to receive your hype, and I'm Googling tankini, and I think you just gave me an excellent next question for when I'm in the briefing room in the White House. Like, we gotta know the White House position on tankini summer.
Please, can that be a question that I
Crazier
honestly
things
feel...
have been asked. Crazier things have been asked.
Crazy things have definitely been asked. And also I feel like that Caroline Leavitt will be like,
oh, she'll have an opinion.
I actually have this one. And I don't have to lie. I don't have to do any of that. Like, I will just actually answer this in a really earnest fashion.
She will have a very informed, well-researched opinion. I'm honest. I say that with all the truth and earnestness in my heart.
Oh my God. All right, folks. Before we get into the show, I just want to remind people that they can support the show by going to patreon.com/Negin Farsad. We have really fun conversations that if you subscribe to Patreon, you get, 2 bonuses of the show. At one tier, you get a third bonus. At the next tier, I mean, there's other stuff.
You being
along
a
the
businesswoman.
I mean, I know, doing my duties, but go to patreon.com/Negin Farsad. And let's get into it with topic number 1. We're going to warm up with some culture talk. And we actually talked about this when I hosted Wait, Don't Tell Me last week, which, but this time I really want to dig in because, oh my God, it totally seems like smoking is cool again. And I don't mean to brag, but I didn't have to read like a think piece about this to understand that this was a trend. I have literally seen hot girls with my own eyes walking around my neighborhood on the way to the bar, smoking cigs. Now, besides my own scientific research, which involved noticing shit and then not documenting it in any way, the official culture writers of various magazines and newspapers have also written about this. Celebrities like Sabrina Carpenter, who smoked in a video. Dua Lipa has been spotted
She used
smoking.
a fork in one of her things,
She's
like smoking with a
using
fork.
a fork, right, as a little cigarette holder, which feels like,
Chic.
who was that? It feels. I mean, it's like Audrey Hepburn, but on whatever, on ketamine.
Avant-garde.
Channing Tatum is
Okay,
on the list. Yes,
I need to
tell
say
me.
that the article that you sent us about this trend to read before the podcast is how I learned that Channing and Zoe split up, and I was not ready for that emotionally. It said he was
my
having a
God.
cigarette in the wake of their breakup.
I'm so sorry. I should
That's
have
okay.
included a trigger warning
I've bounced back.
with today's links.
I feel like
But-
yeah. Go ahead, Negin.
No, but I mean, I was just shocked to know that Channing Tatum, who looks like the picture of fucking health, smokes.
That's the problem. These people are like too good looking, and they make you think that like smoking will like
Yes.
look good on everybody, and like that's just not the case. I will say I am an abroad smoker. Like as soon as I leave the borders of these United States, I do buy a pack of cigarettes. It's like my one thing. My husband hates it, but then he gives me so much shit. He's like, "That's disgusting. I can't believe you do this." He's a global health guy, so you know.
Right.
But
Oh, what
but
a
then-
fucking nerd!
what
Dork.
a loser. Hates infectious disease. It's just,
That's
Oh.
why you go out of the country to get away from this
That's right,
nerd.
that's right. But as soon as I have a cigarette in my hand, a little whiskey in the glass, he's like, okay, oh, that's hot. Shit. It is a conundrum.
Even the global health
Oh,
expert is
no.
susceptible
I know,
to the cool
I know.
image of cigarettes.
Oh my God, that's so wild to me. But then I just wonder, does it have to be that there's smoke coming out of it, or could you be holding a
Just
candy
holding
cigarette?
it. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
true.
Like
That's
Will
I don't know.
Smith
I'm
said-
like, no, don't hold it. I just hold it an entirely different object that's the same shape and is chewable.
I do wonder if like it's kind of a backlash to like the digital cigarettes, you know, the things that all of the kids
Vapes.
were the vapes. Oh, see,
Yeah.
That's how cool I am. I don't even know what they're called.
digital
The
cigarettes.
digital
You
cigarettes.
dork! You and your husband belong together.
Unfortunately, we really do. But like there's something to the act of like actual real smoke.
Analog.
Yeah, analog. Let's bring the vintage
Analog.
stuff back.
I know,
Record players and cigarettes.
right? Because as you're smoking, you're adjusting your vinyl album, whatever those are
It all,
record.
it all goes together, Negin.
It all goes together. I know, but I mean,
Doc-
do you now like on a serious note though? Do you? And by the way, there's other interesting statistics. I mean, besides all the celebrities that are now being photographed willingly smoking, 8 of the 10 films nominated for Best Picture in the 2025 Oscars contain tobacco imagery. There's 41% of the top films released in 2023 showed tobacco compared to 35% in 2022. So it's just sort of like culturally all over the place. Do you feel like that we're entering an era of like sigfluencers, which is what these celebrities are called? who
that was a
smoke
new
and they
word
do
for
it
me
really
today.
I mean,
Yeah.
that
was a new
and
word.
tankini in one episode is a lot of portmanteaus. I had a theory about this. Tell me what you guys think of this. Like, I feel like there's this notion that we, like don't have kids because climate change is going to take over and like, the world is doomed. So is it possible that smoking cigarettes again is like, who cares? There's no future. It doesn't
There
matter.
is a lot
Trash
of
your body.
nihilism among Gen Z in particular. Like it's just nothing matters, nobody cares. Let's smoke cigs and say bye bye cruel world.
Yeah. I do want to say though, it's what's weird is like I feel like I grew up in an era where we had all agreed that we figured out that smoking was bad.
Mhm.
And I did I have a drunken cigarette in college on occasion? Obviously, I'm not an idiot or a monster. I was a normal, And did I also think that having a clove cigarette at once every
Oh.
fiscal quarter was an interesting way to spend your time? Yeah, I fucking did. You know what I mean? But I just didn't know I can't say that I honestly knew very many people. I mean, I think I maybe had one friend who actually became a smoker and then struggled for a few years and then
Well,
quit.
that's when it gets like a lot less glamorous though, because like if you actually hang out with a smoker or get into their car or like hang out in their house, like it's
Then
like
it's gross.
then it's
Or make out with
gross.
them.
Or
Yeah.
make That's right. That's right. Then it's not like the fork and the cigarette. It's like yellow teeth and like bad smells.
Well, also that I remember once there was a guy who was hitting on me and he had, unbeknownst to me, I guess he had like large jowl areas or something, but he had one of those tobacco little I don't
Oh,
know,
a dip.
tea bags of tobacco. I don't
Mhm.
know what they are in. And
Snus.
a dip situation in his mouth. And
Oh
then I was like, oh, like in 10 minutes, me and this guy will be making out. And then when I saw
no.
that, I was like, I must leave immediately. And then, and that was a deal breaker. So I want to say, if you're trying to get with the Negins out there, it's just, it's not going to happen. I think it's gross. I do. I think
Although
it's
the
gross.
new thing is, especially among conservatives, is Zyn. Have you seen the Zyn?
Right. Is Zin comes in a little
It's
tea
in
bag?
a little, yeah, it's in like a little like
Snooze.
pouch. It almost looks
Yeah,
like, you know,
okay.
those things that like it says don't eat when it's trying to keep
Oh, yeah,
like your
yeah.
clothes fresh or whatever.
Right,
It looks kind
right.
of like that, but you do. You don't eat
You're
it, but you put
great.
it in your mouth. Yeah. RFK Jr. is a
Mm,
big fan of Zyn. So
I mean,
our health secretary, for whatever that's worth.
that's so great. That's
Oh God, does
so
this sound like
great.
an advertisement? I'm not advertising Zyn.
Brought to you by
No, well,
Trouble now brought to you.
It's a
episode.
huge
With
phenomenon.
Dasha Burns.
Well, you know what we should now advertise, moving on to another aspect of culture, is the TikTok trend of skincare routines, which has been a part of the body politic for like however long TikTok has been around, 7 years. If you're a person in America, ladies who watch skincare routines or who do them on TikTok. I made the mistake of watching one, and now my entire TikTok algorithm has been hijacked, and
Oh,
it
yeah,
is
it's all I
I
see.
see. It's very frustrating, and I want to throw it into the ocean. But a new study, now here's what's interesting. A new study finds in the journal Pediatrics a link between these elaborate routines on TikTok and the occurrence of lifelong allergies, skin sensitivities, and all kinds of skin
Oh,
shit
good.
that is the opposite of looking hot and young.
Not
Dasha,
glass
are you
skin, not
surprised? No.
over-occurrence of glass skin, which
Yeah,
is the
no.
trend. No, so I'm like a late blooming millennial. Like I just
Okay.
discovered makeup
Skincare?
tutorials and
Oh,
skincare
okay.
tutorials
Yeah.
on the internet, and I have to say I did fall prey to
Your
a
skin
number
looks
of
great.
It
I mean,
happens.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very
happens.
much. It's in recovery from the trauma that I have put it through, and the trauma to my bank account, like falling for
Right.
all of these things. I must have whatever Olivia Munn is using in this bit. Like it is a little bit addicting. And by the way, the cruel part of it is they're not preaching sunscreen of all things. Like maybe at the very least,
That's
like
what's
like,
weird.
and put sunscreen on. Like no, come on,
I find that
ladies.
wild. Now, Zach, as a man,
Mhm.
I'm married to an actor,
Mhm.
and he once every fiscal quarter, which is the way things happen in our home, he gets he remembers that he should do something with his skin. Right.
Mhm.
Yep.
And he'll have like a couple of weeks where he's like, yeah, every night I'm doing it, and then
Yep.
it sort of falls away. Where are you? And as a dude, have you fallen prey to any of the TikTok routines?
Yeah, well, I love, by the way, the image of the fiscal quarter kicks over, you spark a clove, and your husband slathers on some face goop.
Hyaluronic acid, yeah.
Hyaluronic acid, that was the thing to say. You nailed it. TikTok
I'm a
does not-
niacinamide girly.
and now we're over my skis. TikTok does
Yeah,
not
yeah.
serve me this content, but during the pandemic, I got hip to putting sunscreen on every day. It just hadn't been brought to my attention. And then I have like a hexagonal rubber implement with little like nubbly fingers that I like squirt cleaner on and like scrub onto my face nightly. So that's like a relatively recent addition to the routine. Am I describing an object that's appearing in your mind? Neither of you has a facial expression of, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I am concerned. Although my husband is very similar to you, Zach, and to yours, Negin, where he like this is just not a thing that had ever crossed his mind. And now I am fully responsible for his skin. Like if he has a breakout, he's like, Dasha, you forgot to tell me to put that stuff on my face. Like this is your fault.
Oh, it's your fault.
It's my fault. Yeah.
The kids in these TikToks
my skin is dry. You didn't make me moisturize last night.
Immediately you book a ticket to Europe.
Buy my pack of Marlboros
exactly.
and off I go.
Are cigarettes better in other countries? Like milk in Europe is supposed to be better than American milk? Is that a thing?
I feel like everything's better over there. Yeah, like this stuff has less stuff in it. It's like, I don't know. Although the cigarettes in Europe do have like horrible images of like ovarian cancer and decaying lungs and whatnot that ours don't. So, the pack
But
is not
I
as
do
cute.
have to say the unhealthiest I've ever been in my entire life was living in London. So take that for whatever that means.
Negin, in the sample episode of this podcast I listened
Yeah.
to prepare, you name dropped that you lived in Paris and also in India. So I'm glad you're keeping the trend alive.
I'm the worst. Okay,
the
go
kids
ahead.
in these TikToks are as young as 7. That blew my mind. Being a
that blew my
skinfluencer
mind
at
too.
7.
I didn't. First of all, my kid is.
At least
6,
they're not
so
sigfluencers at 7. That's
Oh God!
let's just
Remember?
thank our lucky stars.
Yeah. But the idea, my daughter's 6, and like the idea that she would in less than a year, like I'd be like, all right, let's fire up the TikTok. What are you doing with your face? Like I cannot imagine.
You're losing out on some cash though, girl. Like put that girl.
I need
put
to
that kid
monetize
to work.
her. No, I know. This is a failure on my part. I'm not
She
run
could pay
as the
for
CEO
college.
of my household. I know this is a big mistake. By the way, the typical TikTok person is using more than a dozen products on their face, and the routines cost roughly $168 a month. And the reason that they're developing skin conditions, making their skin far more sensitive to sun and other things, is because if you layer your face with a ton of different types of products, you don't know what you're doubling up on. So you could be doing too much hyaluronic acid, too much of the other AHA acids or whatever the fuck they're called.
Alpha hydroxy acids.
Shut
Wow.
up. Zach is showing
I
up
looked it up.
now.
He studied.
So if you're doing too many different versions of acids, like you will just peel away. You're just going down to the bone then. You know what I mean? And then you're just doing facial bone care.
Chic.
Yeah.
I like that they're called ahas. That's why that's why we can see your face skeleton. You've been using too many ahas. I think this
Yeah.
This reminds me of the cigarette thing where like these beautiful, like 1% of the 1% physically fit people have like some cushion to smoke and it's still okay. And similarly, if you're like 12 or whatever, and you have like this glowing, fresh, untouched, pure skin, maybe you have some margin of error for using these like caustic skin products. I think there's a parallel there.
And then us normals try it, and it's a disaster.
And it's like
The people who
game
need it.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, folks, I think the main takeaway here is let us not take any skincare advice from 7-year-olds and generally most anyone on TikTok.
No advice from the internet. No advice from the internet.
No
It's
advice
counter.
from the
It's
internet.
counter to what everyone else is doing. But we'll start the trend.
Let's
here.
go back to the advice you get from your mom who learned it from someone's aunt. You know what I mean? That's the kind of advice I feel like I grew up on and I feel
The
served me
anti-culture.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue. And we are back, and we're ready for more chatter. Let's get into it with topic number 2. On Friday, Israel attacked Iran in multiple sites focusing on nuclear capability. Iran then launched ballistic missiles and drones at Israel. Iran suspended nuclear talks it had going with America. Israel then told Iranians to get out of Tehran last night because they would do more bombing. It is a full nightmare. I don't know, if there's much to say about this being a full nightmare, because I don't think anyone wants to take the no,
this is
it's
great
not,
side.
yeah, like
I
this
will
is
not
great side.
be taking that part of the debate.
Well, I mean, I think so. So, Dasha, as our sort of woman in Washington, what's your take, and how bad does this get for America?
I mean, this is probably like the most high stakes and hardest moment for President Trump of his tenure so far in the White House, because there's not like a unified MAGA position here. You have Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson being like, this is a disaster, like, please stay out of this completely. And then you have like Mark Levin and other hawks on the Hill being like, this is our moment, regime change, let's do this. And the president really likes to like say everyone's going to win here, and this is like not a situation where everyone is necessarily going to win, especially in his own party. And you do have like these big outlandish characters on the outside screaming from the sidelines, meanwhile they're like in the situation room dealing with the reality of like life and death on the ground. And so the big question is right now that all of us in Washington are chasing is like, just how involved is the US going to get here? Because there are a lot of isolationist types that don't want us to do anything. There are others that like say Israel is such a close ally and Iran's been a hot mess for a really long time and they can't have a nuclear weapon, so we got to go in there. But like the memories of us going in and doing regime change and intervening in the Middle East, like, it's not the best brand for the United States. So
yeah, hopefully those memories are fresh in our mind. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. Zach, what was your take?
Well, my main take is immense relief that Dasha is here to lend some grounding to this topic as the other guest on the podcast. Honestly,
Me too.
in all seriousness, like when the coverage that I've been reading of what's going on in the situation, it's just like there's at least 3 competing narratives for like what the move was here, and like Iran has a plan and Israel has a plan and the United States is coming into it with a thing, and it just contributes to a sense of like, are there grown-ups in on this? Like, it just feels like a shit show. And I feel a dismaying and alarming lack of conviction that it seems like there's level-headed like adults in the mix who are trying to like bring this thing down and de-escalate it, or at least who are holding the reins of power. Dasha is
and that's the thing, like some people don't want to de-escalate. Like there are different camps, right? And like the stuff that is being said publicly, like I would just caution everybody when you're seeing statements from anyone to realize that this is like a kind of a 4D chess situation. Like what is being said is not necessarily just to be taken at face value. It's like they're all winks and nods and hints, and there's all of this, kind of covert action going on in the subtext of what everybody is saying. It's like Trump said, everyone get out of Tehran. That could mean the US is about to like do an aerial bombardment there, or it could mean, hey, we're warning you, Iran, come to the table or else. And then is it a bluff, or is it like a full-fledged threat? So there's a lot. The words are doing a lot of work right now.
So before we move on, I just wanted to address a lot of listeners have DM'd me and asked how my family is doing in Iran. And first of all, it's like the most thoughtful I don't know, kind-hearted.
Well, now we
people.
look like dicks for not asking you.
No. Well, it's no. But I did want to address this because I have gotten a bunch of messages.
Yeah.
And
how much of your family is over there?
Most everybody.
Oh wow.
And and especially on my dad's side, and just so one of the things that happens like in war is or escalation situations, whatever this thing is called, conflicts, is that like like an Iran type will cut off the internet, or it'll come in and out, or they will bomb things that have to do with communication.
Yeah.
So it's been really hard to be able to track everybody because they can't always get through. And, some people have, are old and they have mobility issues. So I haven't been able to totally like figure out if everybody in my family is okay. And so anyway, so sorry. And so anyways, but thank you so much for checking in, everybody. And my answer is I don't really know if everyone's okay.
I'm so sorry.
But yeah. So, anyways, so it's
Well,
it's just maybe a nice reminder that they're like human
it's
beings.
people.
Involved.
I mean, that's
yeah.
the thing. And like when I say the words are doing a lot of work, it's like there's the sort of high level conversation, and there's the reality of the decisions that have to be made. Like when you get into the situation room as a leader, and have to think about like there are real human beings involved here. I went through a similar situation. I'm from Ukraine. I was born there, and my family.
Oh fuck. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of my family members are over there, and so we it's funny because like I'm sure it's similar with Iran, but when I first immigrated here, it was not like on the national radar in anywhere near the same way. Like people didn't know where Ukraine even was, and now it's been one of the hottest spots in the world in terms of conflict. And I know that feeling, and especially when you can't get in touch with folks, and but like I don't know if your family's like this, but especially the older folks, like my grandma is there will be bombs raining down, and she's like, but are you okay? But how are you doing? Like, this must be stressful for you.
Well, I think they're really inspiring people in general. I mean, Iranians have also like been through other wars. I mean, every country has been through other wars, but like in recent memories, they did the Iran-Iraq war between 80 and 88, and so they're sort of like, meh, like not like they're like everyone's truly fucking stressed out and like fleeing Tehran, and there's like a gasoline shortage. It's crazy, but their threshold for pain is very high.
Not the first rodeo.
No, and it's remarkable.
My mom lives on Cape Cod.
Is she okay?
She's doing
the
okay.
Tehran of Massachusetts.
Yes, exactly. People have been DMing, and I really appreciate the concern. I have never considered this before, Negin, so thank you for opening me up to it. But I went and visited her right after the show we did, actually, Negin, and we had to spend 2 hours at the Verizon store for her to figure out, like, basically how to text on her phone. So I can't imagine. I mean, that's under non-war circumstances.
Right.
So I can only imagine the additional stress of aged relatives going through it.
Right. Exactly. I mean, luckily there's like a lot of cousins and stuff who are like, it's funny because that thing of parents not knowing how to operate their phones, that is global. So
yes, relatable.
That brings us all together.
Relatable.
Okay. Well, let's move on to this country. Now, I want to kind of start with the shitty part and then end with the funner part. The shitty part is there was a shooter in Minnesota who killed Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and shot Senator John Huffman, also a Democrat, and his wife Yvette, that were shot earlier in the day but actually survived. This was just again, like, he's been captured. We know that he was a conservative. We know that he had a list of other Democrats. Yes. And so I guess this is just an example of political violence in this country, of which there are other examples. I don't know. It's so
shitty. I mean, like, there's so much shittiness in this shit. Pardon my French, but like, it is that. To me, like, one of the worst parts of this, like looking forward, is all of the talent that we are losing because political violence is becoming more normalized, and that is now something you have to think about if you want to consider being a public servant, right? Like, how many people are like, do I really want to go through I'm going to get constantly harassed and attacked online and doxxed and all of that stuff, but B, now like literally my life could be in danger. Like, how many people are willing to go through that when it's so so in your face at this point? And it just makes me sad that like that is a part of politics.
And it's funny because you sort of think of like state level politicians not necessarily being in the bullseye in the same way, and so that I think is it's
like
really
every
scary.
Like whether you're on your city council or school board or you're the president of the United States, like we've seen examples from Trump's the assassination attempts to now at the local level. Like it feels like nowhere is necessarily immune from this.
And the details are horrific. I mean, I haven't thought about the fact that like the Pelosi home was invaded by like someone with a hammer looking to do damage. And this was like somebody dressed up as a cop who then revealed that they were a murderer. I mean, it's like their horror movies come to life.
And I think the one really like shit part of the whole thing, besides obviously the whole thing was fucking garbage, was that like Mike Lee, Republican senator, and Elon Musk, like both were part of retweeting this, posting about this conspiracy theory that it was like a left wing thing, and I think this is and that Tim Walz was trying to get all his friends murdered. Like what? It was a theory that first of all didn't make any sense, but also it's a theory that doesn't help. Like I think there is a moment where you just blanket say, no, this kind of violence is bad. I don't care who the fuck did it. It doesn't matter. It's terrible, right? And it's wrong, and we shouldn't stand for it. And instead we had politicians and billionaires coming out with conspiracy theories, which is really shitty. Now, let's move on to this other aspect of the weekend, which was we had two diametrically opposed events. There was the No Kings marches around the country. I was at the one in New York for a little bit. It was fun. There were bands and music and flags and hilarious signs. And then there was the military parade in DC, which looked boring. It did include a show of force. There were tanks and soldiers and robot dogs.
Quite a split screen. Quite a split screen.
But there was also like poor attendance and a lot of silence. Zach, what did you think of these diametrically opposing events?
I'm so glad I was at the fun one. I went to, my wife went to the big one downtown in LA. I had a friend who had to leave the country and didn't want to get arrested that night. So I went later in the day to Pasadena, but it was still thousands of people and so much joy and great signs and marching and solidarity. And yeah, I mean, isn't there this notion in politics that like the side that seems like it's having more fun is the one that's going to win the election? Like, I hope that this is, that this backlash to the absolute shit that we've seen over the past few, like I hope that this brings rage but also joy with it, and we can kind of like turn the tide.
That's so interesting you say that, because like I covered the Trump campaign, and like that's what they were all saying at the Trump rallies. Like, look at how much more fun this is than the Democrats that are like talking down to you or lecturing you or whatever. Like that was their message.
Yes.
And lo and behold, Trump is in office, but now I do think like you're starting to see. I think it took Democrats, and they're still not there, but like it's taken Democrats a while to figure out like what does the resistance look like? What is a successful opposition? And they've been sort of flailing. And I think this is sort of early signs of like, okay, maybe we have some traction here. Right. And then like with Gavin Newsom in California having like a real world example of like standing up to Trump, instead of just like, I think for a while Democrats were sort of screaming into the void of like, this is all terrible, but didn't have like that tangible thing. Now there's a tangible thing. Like which one wins out, who knows? But it's interesting to see the galvanization starting to happen.
Yeah, and I also think it's funny because like I hemmed and hawed, and we hemmed and hawed on this show about the military parade for weeks, and yet it felt like it felt really boring. Like, I mean, I only saw clips here and there, but I was just like, oh, this doesn't look like the thing that
drag.
It just really, and it's funny because I was like, well, the military does, for the work that they do and do well, does deserve a celebration for their birthday. And I was like, oh my God, someone should throw them a parade. And I was like, oh wait, this is a parade,
that's
but it like doesn't feel like and I was like, no, there should be dancing and singing. I think the military would and then I realized I was like describing to myself like a pride parade. I was like, oh, the military should just be a part of the pride parade.
I don't think that will be well received by the Secretary of Defense.
No.
Sorry, girl.
No, but that's literally where my mind went. I was like, how do we make this fun? Like, let's get some drag queens in here
for you. I don't think that'll go over too well. But it is interesting, like, because people were worried that Trump was going to make it super political, and he actually didn't. He like really restrained himself. But when Trump is restrained, he's not the same like bombastic, outlandish guy that people are so drawn to. So it's for the people that are sort of helping him navigate this stuff. It's weird because like when he does the thing that politicians are supposed to do, he's like less charismatic.
Yes, and he has a bad impression of a politician. Didn't he say "have a great life" to the soldiers?
He said "have a great life." Yeah,
like,
actually, it was that. I thought that was a really cool moment. There was like a live like
see you never. Yeah.
It was a live like the people like raise your hands if you are re-enlisting for another tour of service, and that was really cool. But then Trump says, "Great job. Have a great life. Have a great life."
God forbid that I extend that man even one iota of grace. But he wasn't saying it in the sarcastic, like, have a nice life sense. It was like a weird way of saying a real thing that he was trying to convey.
Right. Because he doesn't actually like have a great command of like how to speak to human beings. Right. It's so weird. But
it's a unique way of speaking to human beings. It's very distinct.
Mm-hmm.
That's so generous. What you just said is so generous.
I'm the reporter here. I gotta keep
right. Yes. That's right. That's right.
Dasha, just text me the stuff you don't want to say, and I'll speak it out into the record.
He allegedly has a unique way of speaking. Yeah.
Signal gate.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I want to just like end this by saying this thing, which is, I was like in this no king situation, and I couldn't stay for very long because I had the kid, and like there's only so much you could ask of a 60-year-old,
except to make you money on the internet.
Yeah, got to get home and pump out that content.
What am I doing? I need to capitalize. But it's funny because I said to her like, okay, we're gonna go to a protest, and this is why we're gonna go. We have this president. He's like, and he's like not great, and and I was like trying to be gentle and whatever, and she's like, why don't you like him? And I was like, well, I really wish he was nicer to immigrants, and she goes, oh, he doesn't like immigrants? And I was like, no. And she's like, that's our whole family. And I was like, I that's correct. And then when you hear like a 6-year-old explain it that way, you're like, can someone get Trump over here? This might help, like this little explanation. If you can just
I think
see
children presenting politics and policy is a great idea. I wonder where this country would be if, like, during Iran-Iraq, like if we just had like little girls and boys like weapons of mass destruction. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Earlier I said it feels like there aren't grown-ups in charge in what's happening with Israel and Iran. Like maybe we should just take this idea to its logical conclusion and like swap out the kids of these leaders who are making these horrible things happen.
Right. Exactly.
Plus they say the darndest things.
They do. And they're taught early on, like share and be nice about it. So they really take that ethos very seriously at that age. You know what I mean? So like being nice and like not calling someone stupid or whatever, like those things they take seriously. And
put the kids in charge. I'm convinced. I'm fully convinced.
So did she like it, Negin? Was she happy to be there?
She got it? Like I said, it was really fun. There was a lot of music. Like, I had her read some signs, and then there were some signs that I had her start reading, and then I was like, let's look away from that sign. So there was a sign a friend of mine posted that was so fucking funny to me, and it was just like, Donald, you ignorant slut. And I just thought that was the funniest fucking sign. So my point is, take your children to protests. It's a fun time, and it's a really great way to have them kind of know a little bit about their government
and have some very fun phrases to say in front of their friends and get you in trouble at school.
Right.
I think there are more poop and dick jokes on the signage in this protest era than there have been in previous ones. Like the discourse has been lowered or something. But the coarse times call for coarse responses.
That's right.
Right. The 6-year-olds are writing the signs.
Yeah.
All right. Let us move on to topic number 3. Folks, happy hour is in a death spiral. People don't go out for drinks after work anymore, not nearly at the rate they used to, which I don't understand because where does the gossip happen? And then where does all the flirting with coworkers happen?
And it does seem like it's a time for drinking. Like this
absolutely.
should
You
be a
need to
time to be
unwind.
inebriated.
So, I mean, look, Zach and I don't have real jobs. So I can only speak fondly of happy hour as like a concept and something I used to do when I was a real person. Dasha, you're in like a business. Do you guys still do happy hour?
Okay, so I have to say DC is like a very unique animal here because DC loves to drink. Like people show up. Last week I had a black tie gala on a Tuesday and I learned what a fascinator is. If you don't know, it's one of those tiny British hats.
Oh, yeah.
I had to wear one of those on a Thursday, just like a fascinator Thursday to the British Embassy. And like the amount of drinking that happens in this city, like when I moved here from New York in January, I had to do like training. I had to like and now I can't, I'm like, I can't go too long without drinking because then I'll lose my stamina. Like I have to keep it up.
Were you like doing shots running up the Philadelphia Art Museum stairs like in Rocky? You're just like preparing yourself.
I mean, the scene was similar, I will say. I would love to do a day in the life TikTok on this, but yeah, it's very different. Like in New York, everyone I feel like is California sober. Like they don't drink, but they do a lot of drugs. Here in DC, like because everyone gets drug tested here for security clearances, so there is very little drug use, but there is a ton of drinking. So happy hours are alive and well in DC. But I will say, like my husband who works at an even more normal job than me now, like because a lot of people are working from home, I think that's a big part of it because like when you're already out and you're in your like street clothes, like we'll see other people clothes, it's a lot easier to go get a drink. But if you're
not?
But if you're in pajamas, you're like, I'm not putting on clothes just to go get a cheap margarita, you know? It's a little different.
That makes me sad though, because I mean, honestly, I think one of the I think fondly of those days. I mean, I didn't love like, you know, I had some jobs for like consulting jobs and stuff like that. And I was around all those guys and they would wear suits and I would wear something similar. And then, you know, and it was like very much like, okay, it's Thursday, it's Friday, let's go. And there was just so much drinking and there would be hangovers around the office the Friday morning. And it was fun. I mean, it was like probably like if I think back of my real career days where I had a 9-to-5 job, I think back to those nights that were a good time. Zach, do you feel like remote work and like, frankly, some of the data suggesting Gen Z thinks it's inappropriate to drink with your colleagues. Do you think it just will kill happy hour forever?
I haven't had a real job in such a long time, and comedy has its own unique relationship to like drinking being just part of the job. And in the early days and not so early days, you get paid in drink tickets. I had the last time I had like an office job, I was a paralegal at a small, very buttoned up law firm in Boston. And like the thought that we would all go out for drinks after work was, I can't underscore how incomprehensible a prospect that was.
Wow.
But I think that like drinking in comedy as like a way to relax and blow off steam and process the night with your compatriots is like a really important role. But I also saw so many people, I mean, turn into alcoholics, and maybe that's more likely to happen in this job. I mean, I'll say I think NA beers are pretty great these days, and I don't really like to drink that much in my 40s as much as I did in my 20s and 30s. So I feel like let's keep the happy hour part of going out to the bar and being in like a different space than the office space. And like there are pretty good alternatives, like a decent time.
I mean, the NA world, the mocktails world. Mm-hmm. The thing that I'm bitter about is like the mocktails still cost as much as the cocktails.
Yeah, what the hell?
Like, excuse me.
I know that feels wrong.
That feels wrong.
I wonder, I mean, because when I was in my 20s and had those office jobs, I felt like I wouldn't have any friends if I didn't have jobs where I went to happy hours. Like that's where I got most of my social life and developed a friend group in New York City. And so I wonder, are we like making friends at the same rate through work? And obviously in comedy, that goes for comedy too. Like I make friends doing comedy. Dasha, have you seen any changes with the youngsters coming into the political offices? Do you feel like they're making friends?
We're trying to keep that alive at Politico. I think we're a very fun bunch. We're nerds, but we like to, we like to keep it loose.
Nerds party great.
Nerds do party great. No, I do worry though, like a lot of like my husband's cousin has her first job and it's all remote, like it's there's just so much that you miss not coming into the office. And I feel like for people that are more established, that are like, I have kids, I don't want to go in, like they forget how important it is for the younger people in those offices to have that face-to-face interaction, whether that's like in the office or the stuff that happens right after. And like sometimes that's the organic thing of like, oh, it's been a long day, hey, who wants to go get a drink? It's not like an official established happy hour. It's just that kind of thing. That's a lot less likely to happen if you're like, oh, everyone's remote and sitting somewhere in the city, like let's all gather at this place,
And it creates social anxiety to even suggest it. It just like you're not gonna do. I can picture myself being like, I'm not gonna ask. What if everybody says no and I'm a dick? Like it just can't picture
like asking
doing
on a
it.
Zoom meet, like, hey guys, do you guys want to like go out to the
up
world together?
Right. You flag yourself as trouble. It does feel like we don't need one more thing that encourages us to not like have like little face-to-face interactions with other people or substantive ones. There's like the male loneliness epidemic and like everybody's staring at screens instead of going out and doing stuff. I used to perform on the college circuit a lot earlier in my career. And I hear from friends who are still in that world that like kids don't go to entertainment that gets brought into campus anymore. Like attendance was never great
That's
at the
so
like,
sad.
come see the magician in the campus coffee shop. But like now it's really dark and it's just the kids who bring you in. So I feel like a happy hour in-person face-to-face opportunity is valuable, even if it doesn't necessarily involve alcohol. Maybe we need to go like bowling or laser tagging.
Oh,
JK,
folks.
I'd never go.
Loser.
No,
I'd never go.
I've never done laser tagging. I've always wanted to. So someone
me too,
invite me.
actually.
I mean, did we just
Dasha,
crack
next
it?
time you're in New York, let's
We're
make it
doing
happen.
This. We're doing this.
All right, folks, that is the end of our show. I would love for the people of Fake Nation to be able to follow you and all the wonderful things that you do. Dasha, where do they do that?
At Dasha Burns on all of the things.
Dasha Burns, and then remind us the name of your podcast.
The Conversation with Dasha Burns. It airs on Sundays.
And again, so great. The one I listened to first was Dr. Oz, and I just had never heard him speak as a human being before. And, so it's like all the things that you're, that you may not like about him. And then some things that you're just like, oh, he's also like a human. That's weird. And I don't know.
The latest one,
the
latest one is with, we had Rahm Emanuel on, and then Richard Grinnell was the latest one, who's like an out gay Republican. And we had a very interesting conversation about pride and I quote, normal gays. So, I highly recommend that deep
oh
dive.
My God,
and
I can't wait.
Reactions across the board, of course. But
Zach, where do people find you?
Yeah, I'm at Zach Sherwin, and that's Zach with an H, and also Sherwin with an H, I guess, if that was in doubt for you, on all kinds of social media. And just taking my cue from what happened immediately previously, the thing I want to tell people about is the crossword show. Our next live performance is in Los Angeles on July 2nd, and it's comedians solving a crossword puzzle live on stage in front of a crowd while I host.
Guys, I'm like truly sending literal text messages to friends to go see the crossword show because it's so fun. So if you're anywhere near Los Angeles, and he does multiple cities, so follow him on the social so you can see where he goes. The show is incredible.
Thank you,
especially
Negin.
if you don't like crossword. So you don't have to love it. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a drag, and then it wasn't. It was so much fun. So
that's how I
don't
felt
do
about
that.
doing comedy about current events. And I just have to tell people, so it's nice that we're stepping out of our comfort zones into each other's. But
Yeah.
at the end of it, you were like, what do you think, crowd? Should I start doing crosswords? And the whole room was like, yay! It was heartwarming.
my God, how earnest and wholesome.
It was very sweet.
It was. It really
A light
was.
in these dark times.
But folks, you know where to find me and all the things that I do. I just wanted to point out, because I don't remember if I did last week, but you could find the full commencement address that I gave a few weeks ago on YouTube, conveniently located
Inspiring
at
the
youtube.com/Negin
Cool, dude.
I'm inspiring the youth and trying to give an
Did you tell them
uplifting
to not do
message.
the TikTok skincare and to go to happy hours? I think that's the message.
That darn study came out after my commencement, so I wasn't able to get that in.
Next time.
But folks, check that out. Otherwise, I want to thank everyone who makes the show a possibility. Thanks to our producer Rob Heath. Thanks to Gaby for our theme music. You can reach us at fakethenationpodcast@gmail.com. And otherwise, we'll be back in your earballs next week.